Okay, good evening. I'm going to start our public hearing. We have two hearings this evening. We're going to go over them back to back, and then if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them as I go through the presentation, or if you have them at the end, whichever one you prefer, I'm fine with. So the first one is our district safety plan, and we're going to go through that in just a second, as soon as I can figure out the remote here.
It was working. The timer.
Last thing you clicked on should have been on the screen. All right, try it now. There it goes.
So, all right, thank you. So just going to go quickly through a few things. We're going to start off with some key terms, just so that everybody's on the same page. Threat assessment, that's a fact-based systematic approach to identifying information about a potential act of violence. Risk assessment is really specific to an individual when they've threatened self-harm. SHELLS is the New York State response acronym for shelter, hold, evacuate, lockdown, and secure lockout. The SRP is the standard response protocol. That's a very specific set of steps that we would follow with respect to a crisis response. And then the HPTM is the harm prevention threat management model, which is the program that we follow when it comes down to specific threat assessments. So some other key terms, we have the SRM, which is the standard reunification model, and I'm going to talk a lot about that throughout the presentation, just to give you an overview of a specific case incident as to how we would handle that. The TIG is the trauma, illness, and grief. That's a scientifically proven strategy-based program that we call together in the event that there's an act of trauma, illness, or grief with respect to students who are sick, or staff members who are sick, or family members, or parents who pass away. And then new this year is something that was passed last summer, which is Dacia's Law, which was signed into law by Governor Cuomo, which requires schools to designate where our AEDs are within the building. And one of the things that I'll talk about with respect to ours, we're in the process of getting more wayfinder markers just to highlight where they are. But the one piece I want the board to take comfort in is our district still follows a check, call, care method, which is check on the person who's down or injured, call 911, and then render care. And with that second step of calling 911, I just want to remind you, our program, the 4D-scape, TAP app 4D-scape is where 911 is involved. They have asset plotting maps of our school district. They know where our AEDs are located, and a 911 operator can lock and unlock exterior doors and walk someone from the public into the building and say, here's the closest AED should you need to use it. So that's one that I think is a nice feature. It's an added benefit. So when we talk about this school district safety plan, I like to use the analogy that it's like an inverted triangle, or it's like an umbrella. So the safety plan is comprised of three major components: the emergency response plan, the emergency preparedness plan, and then the emergency management plan. Sorry, the management plan washed out a little bit there on the slide. So the emergency response plan is all the work that goes into the operational stuff. It's the building safety teams, it's the district safety team, it's the tailoring your responses to specific things and going through protocols, assigning roles and responsibilities, making sure people are aware. And it also really references notification and activation of particular alarms. With our emergency preparedness plan, this is when we're actually dealing with an event. So we're actually going through something where we're saying, hey, this call came in, here's the early detection, here are some strategies we're going to employ, and then these are the protocols that we should follow. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. This is the SHELLS acronym that I referenced earlier. Okay, so when we talk about, you know, what our protocols typically are, the shelter in place, the hold in place, evacuate, secure, lockout, and then lock down, it talks about all the different things. And you might notice at the top of each recommended action, you're going to see some very command-oriented statements, which is listen for instructions, announce, you know, what's happening so that people are preparing for that. And then with the emergency management plan, unfortunately, that means we are in a situational response, something has happened, and we're actually implementing components of the preparedness plan. And the safety plan is really at the final stages. So we talk about reunification, and in some cases we talk about recovery. God forbid that there's a tragic incident, but we're talking about the aftermath, excuse me, and what that looks like for folks. So our standard response protocol is based on the I Love You Guys Foundation. In our TAP app software that we use, that's on every district-owned device, laptop, Chromebook, things of that nature, and on many staff members' personal devices, we go through, we have access to the reunification process on our phones. It's there as part of the component with TAP app. And it just really is something where, again, this originated as a result of Sandy Hook and the fact that there were no protocols in place when that tragedy occurred, and that mothers and fathers and loved ones were looking for children for hours on end and had no clue as to what was happening. So here's the acronym again. So going back to what I talked about with the protocol, there's an action that's called out. It's always followed by a directive. And we're going to start one here just to kind of show you. So every action has specific instructions to tell students and staff what they're asking them to do over the PA. So first thing would be, we are in a hold in place, something to that effect. So there's an action and a directive. Hold in your classroom. Then we're going to tell people why there is a hold in place, right? Most oftentimes when we put out a message to folks, to you all as community members, typically you'll get a message out through Parent Square afterward. There was a medical incident, and in this particular scenario, say to you, we had a staff member that was ill. So that's the reason for the hold in place. We tell people, you know, first responders are coming on scene, teachers, we want the students to remain in the classroom until we give the all clear announcement. Staff, we want you to stay in the classroom as well. Lock your doors, close your doors, especially if it's something where a student is ill, you know, or a staff member has fallen ill. We try to respect their privacy, keep their integrity intact. We ask them to go ahead, verify the attendance to make sure that if someone's out of the classroom in this process, they can account for where that is, and then carry on business as usual. So that's just one example for each of these protocols that we go through up here. Figure it's probably the easiest one to explain, and it is the one that we utilize most in school. It could be for, like I said, a sick staff member, a sick child, could be for, you know, an incident that's occurring. Any of these 4 protocols here, or 5 protocols there, the other 4 would have similar action steps that would go out via PA. Those are all spelled out in our response plan, and it goes right through the specifics of each of those incidents. I just wanted to kind of give you a highlight of that, and then kind of reference again the 3 components here, and just say, you know, these 3 things go best together when they're utilized and updated. And every time we go through an actual incident, we debrief. Anytime we go through a fire drill, we want to see, can we get better and improve on our timing? Anything that we have with respect to changing of staff, we want to make sure we update. And then a copy of our safety plan goes out to law enforcement, and the actual plan, the prescriptive side of things, is a confidential document kept under wraps, but utilized, unfortunately, if needed. So try to go through that in a fairly quick manner just to give you a sense of what those standard protocols would look like, steps that we've taken, and then I guess I could close it up with, as I started to say at the beginning, as part of the overall safety plan. You know, when you think about the code of conduct, which is our next public hearing, that's a part of our safety plan, because we want a well-kept environment where people are civil and interact with each other in a very positive fashion. And we are a very progressive district when it comes down to keeping our students and staff safe. And, you know, with respect to the standard reunification method, I'm pleased to say that we have Carly Posey and Riken Posey, who are two survivors from Sandy Hook, who will be coming into district in October and giving our staff a keynote speech as to the importance of it. Riken is now a 21-year-old young man, but he was in the first grade classroom, and he has a really incredible recall, and has turned that tragedy into something really extremely positive going around the country. And, you know, I had a chance to interact with him, his mother and father last year at a CPAS event that I was at, and just a great family, and we're really looking forward to them coming into the area in October. And I would just invite our board to be involved with that if you're able to, because I think it'll be a very good and powerful experience for our school district and one of our neighboring districts who's going to join us on that staff development day. Questions about our safety plan, concerns, comments? Anything from the audience? Okay, thank you. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go right into our proposed code of conduct for the 26-27 school year. And I'm going to go through it at a similar pace, because I know I have a presentation that follows this, but I also feel like, you know, it's important for you to understand. We had a committee look at our code of conduct this year. We had 2 board members that participated from the policy committee. I just want to start off by saying that the Board of Education is committed to providing a safe and supportive school environment where students receive and district personnel may deliver quality education services without disruption or interference. I'm not naive to the fact that there are times where interruptions occur due to misbehavior or incidents beyond student and staff control. But I will say, as I said in the last hearing, it's a pretty great place to be when you have a culture and a climate that's focused on not just physical safety, but emotional safety and well-being as well. So throughout our process, you know, we've had a long-standing set of requirements which, you know, guide how people are supposed to behave at school functions. They're based on the principles of civility, mutual respect, citizenship, and integrity. I'll just highlight a few of those things. That is the guiding premise behind our code of conduct. And also, when things don't happen according to those guiding principles, students may be disciplined, staff may be disciplined, visitors may be disciplined. And I think that that's something that people have to understand with respect to the code of conduct as an overarching principle, primarily used for supporting our students, but I will talk a little bit more about what that means for staff, what it means for visitors and other outside guests as well in a second. Just a quick overview of what a definition for a disruptive student might look like. Here's absenteeism, and I know this is one our board looks at closely. Chronic absenteeism is defined as anything greater than 10%. You know, so we want our students here well beyond the 90% of the time, but it is something where, again, we have certain benchmarks and thresholds once we we get to those numbers, we're obligated to respond. Artificial intelligence is one that I think our board is working on a policy for right now. And this is something where, again, we've worked with the Social Institute last March during Staff Development Day. We'll continue to guide our practices toward ensuring that artificial intelligence is meant to enhance, not supplant human intelligence. We'll be very focused on using the technology appropriately, and then also making sure that we're not worrying about plagiarism in the form of people taking and throwing stuff into ChatGPT just because they think it makes them more efficient. There's still many errors with ChatGPT, and we're starting to see that on a regular basis. So here's one that, you know, it strikes me as peculiar to be in the code of conduct, but an e-bike or an electric bicycle, it is something where we're starting to see they're frequenting our roadways, frequenting our sidewalks, and becoming a general nuisance when they're not obeying traffic and safety laws. So that's going to be new to the code of conduct this year. You know, and we kind of state to our students, if you're not of age and the equipment isn't licensed, they should understand it's not accepted here on school grounds. The cyberbullying, unfortunately, in this day and age of technology, it's something that we have to continue to take an aggressive stance against. Here are a couple of examples of what it is, whether it's on school campus or off. You know, if it impacts the learning of others, you know, it is something that is enforceable by our code of conduct. And then, you know, we spent a lot of time with the district safety committee talking about sexploitation and sexting last year, and we did a lot of work with our group, not only with the Social Institute, but we talked about the impact of cyberbullying and social media with Dr. Duvall from Johns Hopkins last spring. She did a great presentation to our safety committee and referenced, you know, the trends that show the correlation between the rise of social media and the depression in youth and adolescents. So internet-enabled personal devices, last year you understand that we were, you know, mandated by the governor's law, you know, to limit those. And just like I said a second ago, you know, we did do that. We invoked a policy, we invoked a practice, we followed through on it. We're collecting data that we have to report, and we'll put up the report in the first part of September about how well our plan worked and how many incidents we had with this. But there's a component here where in the code of conduct this year, the policy, or excuse me, the group that looked at the code is actually asking for our adults to model positive use of those apparatus so that they can start to see, you know, their behaviors are modeling what's expected for our students. So that's going to be a change in the code of conduct. And the other piece that I'll say that I took away from Dr. Vidal's presentation last spring was, you know, we talked about, we can clearly see the way our students' brains are wired and the addictive traits that they have to technology, in particular cell phones. Just going cold turkey like that, you know, we did have some transition time and we did have some bumps in the road, and there were consequences that resulted in insubordination, because as you know, the governor stated clearly you can't give a consequence for the student having their device, but the behaviors that led up to them being caught with it certainly were things that you could enforce. But I think that was an important piece that we have to stop and think back, and I love the committee for saying, let's have our adults model it, because I really believe that's a good first step. So informal conference is something that comes up when student discipline is usually issued, and it's something that I think we as an institution can always continue to do better with. Typically when a student gets in trouble, there should always be a phone call with the child present. So the administrator's making the call, student's there, parent hears the district side of it, parent gets a chance to interact with the student at the same time. And then if there's a need for a conference, the parents always offered a conference to come in if discipline's going to be rendered or if there's going to be further discussion. And I think that this is one where, again, I just wanted to highlight that this year because I don't think we did a good job of referencing this to our greater community to say you are entitled to an informal conference. So if Mike Pullen's being suspended from school, his parents are entitled to an informal conference to discuss the reason why they're thinking of suspending me. And that can go even for in-school suspension. Parents always have the ability to decline the informal, but we need to do a better job of making sure we're offering it. And again, I'm not saying our administrators are doing poorly with it. I just always think we can improve. Hazing, as you know, oftentimes it's affiliated with clubs, activities, or sports, you know, and that's something where, again, the code calls that out. We want to make sure, you know, we're specific to what the consequences are and what will not be accepted with respect to hazing. And then restorative practices. We've put a ton of time and energy, and I know our administrators are going to work again with some professional development next week to make sure that we're always conscientious of ensuring that we're addressing the behavior. We understand school's a place for students to make mistakes, you know, but we're addressing the behavior and ensuring that the student realizes we care about them. We may not always like their behavior, but we definitely want to make sure we keep them moving on the right path. And it doesn't mean you can't assign consequences, just means how you deliver it and how we work forward when bad decisions are made. I think that that's something that's pretty significant. So this one here is a piece that I wanted to highlight this year that referenced the Workplace Violence Prevention Act. That's something that's, you know, becoming more and more widespread in public places with respect to work. I know hospitals are going to be dealing with a law that's coming out in the very near future, school districts, and if we've seen anything, public places of mass gatherings, school districts, hospitals, things like that, and where people tend to be emotional, this is a big thing. But I bring this up because, again, when I talked about the code of conduct, you know, we're not law enforcement, but we are private property, publicly funded private property. So when the board adopts the code of conduct, this is our basic principle to say, hey, we can tell people you're not welcome here when you know, don't comply with our requirements. And this is one where I think people often overlook it, but it is something that I think is important to talk about. The code is for staff, it's for visitors, it's for board members, it's for all of us, and there is a required training from the school district. So interventions, you know, those are strategies in terms of trying to correct the behavior or redirect the behavior. And then here's the range. Nothing new this year compared to last, with the exception of under 3 long-term suspension, that column there. The last one there, police notification, it's not atypical for us if we have an incident that occurs where it's a physical altercation, where we may notify the police, we may tell parents what their rights are with respect to pursuing charges if there's a violent incident or if there's something involving theft, vandalism, or damage. Likely the board would want us to cover your assets and make sure that we notify the police if somebody vandalized the elementary playground. So we just thought calling it out in there so that people understand, hey, there's no gray. If a high school student goes down and does donuts in the soccer field, there's chances that there's going to be, you know, a need for some restorative conversations, but also likely some police notification involved in that as well. And then the last piece, really the bulk of DASA, is really here, that we're going to act promptly to investigate all complaints, verbal, written, formal, or informal. or acts of discrimination. And here are our designated Dignity Act coordinators for the 26-27 school year. Amy Witorowicz will be doing an internship, so one of her primary roles is going to be the DASA coordinator for the elementary school. Joe Canori will be the primary at the middle school, and Lisa Vasali will continue to be the primary at the high school. And then you see the secondary contact for each of the respective buildings, and then Megan continues to oversee the overall DASA program. Here's the communication protocol when stuff does arise. It's not all bad with the code of conduct. We want to talk to them. If you're having an issue, resolve it at the lowest possible level, work your way up the ladder, follow these steps, and it's not because we're trying to bypass work. We're just always trying to get it resolved at the lowest possible level. And when that method fails, we obviously escalate it up the food chain. So my conclusions for the code of conduct, the edits that we have in front of you for your review reflect the feedback from the committee. And again, the committee wasn't just board members from the policy committee. There were administrators, teachers, parents. Some people served in multiple roles: board member, parent, teacher, parent, past parent, things of that nature. So it's very good. The code continues to provide an operating standard to keep us compliant. Consistent implementation, which I think we're getting pretty darn close to being dialed in across the board with consistency and implementation. That's a vital thing. And then our approach to restorative practices has proven to be effective. The number of incidents that we deal with and the number of referrals go down. It doesn't mean suspensions go away, but it does mean that we're being more effective with what we're doing. So are there any questions? Okay, and I'm going to leave this up here, and I believe you all have access to this as well. One component outside of the code of conduct, there is an embedded piece, the athletics and extracurriculars handbook as well. So when student athletes go participate in sports, or pupil participate in the musical, or they're involved with anything like that, we do have the athletics and extracurricular handbook that goes over for each of those entities as well. And I know that's been talked about in the past, so I'll kind of pause it there and see if there are any questions. Anything from the audience? Okay, thank you. Right.
Good evening. I'll call the Board of Education meeting to order for the North Rose-Wolcott Central School District. Linda, we're happy to see you on Zoom. We hope you're feeling better. We do appreciate you keeping your contagious bugs at home, but we're glad you're here Zooming. At this time, let's please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A motion, please, to approve tonight's agenda. Tina, Nicole, any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda? Motion is carried. At this time, we do have a presentation, and I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Pullen for that.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Collier. I wasn't trying to hog the meeting tonight, I promise, but I figure if we get those hearings out of the way tonight, we could free some things up later in the summer, and we can actually get those code of conducts printed to people if the board accepts it tonight. I promised earlier in the spring that I would give you a quick overview on Cougar Ops at the conclusion of the year. So my purpose for tonight is just to do that. Mark and his team do such a great job, and I know they got into extensive information with you throughout last year, but I just want to highlight again for our public and our community, what Cougar Ops actually is. So Cougar Ops stands for Opportunities for Personal Success, and for the board, you'll recall the quad, right? The 4 classrooms that we retrofitted as part of the 2021 capital project. And within that quad, you have 2 classrooms. You have the Dub Hub, as Mr. Matthews has affectionately coined it. And then you have the Tutoring Center, which was a partnership last year that we created with Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, and really took what we started to craft here and took it region-wide. So really, Cougar Ops, Opportunities for Personal Success, focuses on credit recovery, tutoring component, executive functioning and metacognition skills, as well as social emotional wellness, and then credit accrual. And so they've done an exceptional job this past year. And really, I think what we looked at, there were 119 kids total that we serviced throughout the course of the academic year. And so last September was the first time we actually rolled this out to the region, and we started out with a fairly slow start, but then as the year went on, it became pretty consistent. So if you look at that, 56 of those are our students, which again, we had the program regardless, but 63 coming from out of district really turned a nice program into a great program, because we were able to welcome students in from 8 total districts, our own included. And if you think about that, if you look, and I could tell you, if you were to pick up the phone and call Bloomfield High School right now and ask their high school principal, would she support our program, I think you'd find a resounding yes. She was thrilled with what we did for her students. She raved about it and actually has commented on that more than once. So in addition to those districts, here are some of the subjects that we covered in that program. Middle school math, science, ELA, Spanish, and phys ed. Then a high school, you saw math, we had algebra, geometry, statistics. Science, we got living environment, earth science, forensics, and applied earth science. And then global 1 and 2, U.S. history, economics, and government for social studies. And then English, we did the full battery 9 through 12. We did phys ed, and then we provided credit recovery and life skills coursework and other electives. So how did the hub support Cougar Ops? So with those districts that were busing students in, sometimes transportation wasn't always readily available when the sessions ended, and sometimes students need to be dropped off a little bit earlier. So if a student, for example, came in from a neighboring school district a half an hour earlier, they may go into the hub and start working on last night's homework with the guidance of a teacher assistant or a teacher aide kind of overseeing it. They may actually go through some of the executive functioning, helping students get organized. It might go over some metacognition, just how do we think about thinking going into the actual activity. It really worked very well between our students that were in there regularly and the students that were in there for tutoring, having those supplemental services. And then the other part is we had members of the hub going in and pushing in to support those students, like I just mentioned, in those tutoring sessions. A few years back, you'll remember I talked with the board about this idea of starting this program and really talked about, hey, when students get suspended, this is a big part of that restorative piece. you got to figure out what you're going to do with them, because at the time it was only a 2-hour requirement a day for tutoring. What do you do with the other 4.5 when they're home or they're on the streets, or when they couldn't get dropped off here because their parents had to provide tutoring or transportation to tutoring? So one of the things that I had asked people for feedback on was where they thought the tutoring center should be, on campus or off campus, and the answer came back a resounding off campus. And I said, well, that's great. We're going to move it to campus, and then we're going to pick them up. So that really kind of caused some people to stiffen up a little bit, because I think the response that I gave was so swift. But it was based on students, and it's based on opportunities to succeed after they make mistakes. Excuse me. So I highlight this data here because out of 119 students that were in your program, many of them that are ending up in tutoring for poor choices, either here or in their home district, or they're just struggling in general, they tend to be the ones that people kind of label and say they misbehave here, they'll never get back on track. So out of 119 students, out of 180 days for the school year, we had 4 incidents. 2 incidents of pushing and hands-on behavior, 1 incident of a threatening statement, and then 1 incident for a sexually suggestive comment. Unfortunately, 1 student did have to be removed, and it's probably for the most egregious of those 4 incidents there. There's no probably, it is for the most egregious, and it was a student who had made a poor choice prior in those 4 issues. But if you look at the dates that the student was with us, that child was with us from September through June, so they were on their way to making great gains with respect to being in school, being attentive, and doing all the right things. And at the end, the egregious behavior just caused us to say, hey, this isn't going to work for the rest of the year, because now you're impacting the learning of others. But for 10 months, that child was here, and they were doing well with us. Some feedback we got from other students from other districts: the rooms are quieter than the classes in their respective schools. It's easier to pay attention. It's nice to have small groups. They look forward to going back to their school district and reacclimating, reentering. But if they had to stay here, they would be okay with it. They do get more work done, is their belief, while they were in ops tutoring than they had all year. And their grades are better because they've been in Cougar ops tutoring. So one of the things that we talk about with a constant state of trying to get better is, how can we get better? We feel like there's got to be improved communication protocols with our district and the teachers of record. We need to clarify our expectations with respect to the district partnerships. So hey, what's the appropriate turnaround time? How are we going to get information back and forth? We need to make sure we continue to collaborate around related services and instructional materials. So if a student has counseling on their IEP, or if a student needs, modifications or accommodations per an IEP, we just want to make sure that we're adhering to that, and that we do go through that stuff when we have the intake process, or if there's an annual review or things of that nature and they want us to be a participant in that. We just want to make sure we clarify the expectations. And then last is really just making sure those assignments are, provided. I think that that's really critically important piece. Overall, very good start to the year would be my general assessment. It's been well received regionally, and we really appreciate the BOCE's support on this. And to the board, thank you for your foresight and your support with getting this off the ground and really benefiting so many students. There's one case that stands out in my mind in particular, and it shows 2 school districts, the home district and us, working together, where a child was, really not attending school. And the superintendent and I had a conversation about what can we do together, and would we consider some things. Suspension period's coming up. Would we accept this student as a student for the remainder of the year? And the answer was yes. And we worked on behalf of that child, and I'm pleased to say next year, home district has gone forward with saying, why stop a good thing? We want that child to come here for half a day, and we want that child to go to Wayne Tech and Career Center for the other half of the day, because we're willing to commit to their success, and we appreciate the relationship. To me, it achieved everything that we said we were going to do a few years ago, because there's the cliche, if you could save one, and I think we're doing that and then some. So thank you. Any questions, comments, or feedback? Yes.
I actually have two questions.
Yep.
What is the referral criteria, and have we denied students?
So the referral criteria is open-ended. Typically, it can be something where a school district says, Mike's suspended for 5 days, can you provide tutoring? Mike's suspended for 3, can you provide tutoring? Or, hey, Mike's out of school for the remainder of the year, can you provide tutoring? That triggers us requesting information and doing an intake process. Typically, it would be send us the transcript, send us some behavioral stuff, let us bring a group of people together, including the student and the student's families, if they want to get a look at it and see, so that they don't feel like they're being shipped off to the abyss. With respect to certain violent behaviors, we've taken a position to say, if there's a pattern, we're going to look closely at that, and we reserve the right to either say, we'll tutor you virtually, or we will deny it. And last year, I don't know that we denied anybody last year. I do know we had some questions, and then I don't know where it landed. But usually the violent piece is the one piece of criteria for me. So if it's, sexual in nature, physical in nature, anything like that, where it's creating a hostile environment for somebody else, we tend to say we're going to look closely at that. And those are our two options, either no or it's virtually. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. The board has not only approved of the Cougar Apps program, but the board has embraced it and is very proud of what you've done with it. So thank you.
Thank you.
These are students that are possibly achieving success for the first time in their educational career here. We come now to the board member request, comments, and discussion. This is a time when I need to officially let you know your committees. I did email you those so that you are aware of those, but I will go over those very quickly. The liaisons to the different buildings and programs are the elementary school liaison, John Bogard, middle school, Linda Egner, high school, Leslie Hafner, and Cougar Ops, Nicole Smith. The 4-county Board of Directors representing us there, and the 4-county Legislative Committee is Linda Egner. The Audit Committee, which is a required committee, is Travis Kerr, Chairperson, John Bogard, and Nicole Smith. The Handbook Committee is Linda Egner, Chairperson, Cinda Collier, and Nicole Smith. The Communications Committee is Tina Reed, Chairperson, Cinda Collier, Leslie Hafner. The Personnel and Negotiations Committee is John Bogard, Chairperson, Cinda Collier, Tina Reed. And the Policy Committee is Leslie Hafner, Chairperson, Travis Kerr, and Tina Reed. In addition, Travis Kerr represents us on the district safety team. So those are the board responsibilities for this current year, the 2026-27 school year. While we're here, I do know that one committee has met already. Do any of you have reports?
Let me do that now.
Tina?
Yes. Okay, the Communications Committee actually met just before this meeting, and we have a proposal that I'll pass out. Here. And a copy for Mike. So what we're proposing, this is a relatively new committee. We did meet last year, and we got a foundation, but we'd like to really expand and have it be more meaningful to the community, have more of an open communication from the board as to what we're doing and why we're doing some things, why some decisions are made. So what we're proposing is that we create a Board of Ed newsletter, not a newsletter, but a newsletter, just conveying news to our community. So it would be separate. It would go to community households, and that would be in additional to the district newsletter, but very separate. The reason we're thinking this, why we need to do this, is to increase communication from the board and the community, to let the public know what the board is doing, what some of our issues are, some of the things that we're doing, some things that we find to be important, and why we're making some of the decisions we make. We want to reach people that don't have kids in school, that receive, I think our parents are very well informed when they have children attending the district. For those people or our community members that don't have kids, you don't always hear what's happening. And we think it's important that they do. So we'd like to use this as a device to do that. We want to, at times, information is misinterpreted or dispelled, so we would like to dispel that, make it the information correct, have an avenue so that people understand why we've made decisions. We'd like to increase trust in the board, support for district proposals such as our budget, our capital improvement projects, and attendance at student events, as well as to instill pride in our district. We're a good district and we want people to know that. We're currently determining when it would be sent out and how often, but it would be in addition to the months of the district newsletters. It would not be at the same time. The who part of this is that the Board of Ed newsletter would be written by the board and sent from the board. This is going to be self-created from our board, so we'd be encouraging our own members to write articles or to bring up topics and different concepts we'd like. So the Communications Committee would be responsible for spearheading the letters, but the Board of Ed members would suggest topics, write articles, read and approve each letter before mailing, and assist in mailing the preparations if necessary. So we're going to be doing the work. So we'd be more actively involved. So what we're proposing tonight is for the board to agree to this concept in general. And then we would, after that, once we have that, we would be able to, the board of this committee would then go ahead and get all of the details. The costs, for one thing, the format, how often we'd print, and that type of thing. Is that it, Cinda?
We'd bring it back to the board.
Right, and once we'd make that, we have to bring it back to the board once we have that information. So this would be a starting point tonight. We'd figure out what we're going to do if the board is in agreement to pursue this. Once we have the facts in line, we would then bring it back to the board again for final approval. Right, we'd have to have a resolution.
Do you have questions, comments?
Kind of a lot all at once.
All right, then I'm going to ask each one of you if you do agree to having the committee continue on to explore the options of such a newsletter. Tina,
Yes. I would like to.
you agree?
Yes.
Leslie? I agree. Nicole? John? Yes. Linda?
Yes. Yes.
All right, thank you. Then the committee has, and me, yes, I agree. Then the committee will proceed, and after they've done some homework and some investigation, we'll come back to the board with those options for discussion again. Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to public access. Tina, does anyone have any request to speak to the board? There's no one. All right, thank you. At this time, the board needs to go into executive session for a few minutes to discuss the employment history of employees. A motion, please, to go into executive session. Leslie and Nicole. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. The board will leave for a few minutes, and we'll be back shortly. We are back in session. And we are on number 5, the consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. John and Leslie? The consent agenda goes through page 9. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Motion is carried. Because we did not hear any issues or disagreements or questions about the safety plan or the code of conduct, I'd like to put those on the agenda with the green sheets at this time. So first of all, I need a motion to put these resolutions, add them to the agenda. Tina and Nicole. Any discussion? All in favor? All right. So I'll pass these out. And I will entertain a motion to approve the items listed to approve the district-wide school safety plan and building level emergency response plans, and to approve the code of conduct as presented. A motion, please. John and Tina? Any discussion? All in favor of approving the response plans, code of conduct, and safety plan? Motion is carried. Moving back to the agenda, number 7. A motion, please, to approve the co-curricular, no, wrong one. I beg your pardon?
You need to do number 6. It starts on page 8.
Oh, you're right. Number 6, right. A motion, please, to approve these board appointments and designations. Nicole and Leslie, any discussion? All in favor of appointing the appointments and designations? Motion is carried. And now number 7. A motion, please, to approve this co-curricular appointment. John and Leslie, discussion? Tina, would you call the roll?
Cinda?
Yes?
Tina?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Leslie? Yes. Travis is absent. Nicole? Yes. Thank you. Motion is carried.
Thank you. We come now to the board member requests and comments and discussion time. And the student board representative, Mr. Pullen, what are we doing there?
So, Mrs. Collier, we actually have 2 student board reps that are interested, and we're going to introduce you to these 2 young ladies. My hope is next Thursday, when we have our new teacher luncheon. They're both exceptional young ladies. I'm going to save their name for right now. Both were excited to think about the opportunity to work with our Board of Education. One in particular started seeking me out last year when she realized the position was coming available, because she wants to pursue a career in law at some point in time. So she wants to understand governance. One of the things that I thought about with Ms. Sinclair is that last year we had a lot of opportunities that were presented around the region that required our students and our student reps to travel. And that became an issue because there are so many commitments that our students are involved in. So one of the things that I've talked about is, why don't we do our own little orientation for our student board reps, go over roles, responsibilities, intended outcomes that they're looking for, expected outcomes that we're hoping for when they give board reports and things of that nature. But one thing that I think our board does exceptionally well is we have a very good handbook. And I would love to create a student board member handbook, which is a pared down version of what our Board of Education uses, because I think that really could be a tool that's critically important for continuing students on the right path, so that we're not reinventing the wheel year after year, and it gives them some basic guides and principles to follow when they become standing board members. So my hope is that the two young ladies will be able to join us for lunch next Thursday, and then that they could follow up with that at our second board meeting on August 27th. And just looking to see what the board's thoughts are on that.
Sounds good.
I do really like the handbook idea. That makes a lot of sense.
I see everyone nodding. So as far as the handbook goes, I think, Linda, would you on the handbook, as chair of handbook committee, like to work on that?
I think it would be a good addition. So if the other committee members agree, I think we should go forward with that.
Good, good. The board here is in full agreement, so it's all yours, and we'll look forward to meeting these two gals next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
All right, great, great. Does anyone else have anything to bring up? Or good news? John?
Recently, there's been some good articles and pictures on Facebook and in the Lakeshore News having to do with NRW, and with student pictures, kids doing things in summer, well, whatever we call summer school, but a good thing. The lunch program through Amazon was highlighted. It was on TV as well, and I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
Very unique program.
Yes, we have a lot of good things going
Yep.
on here. Absolutely. Let me, where did my calendar go? There it is. Boy, am I spread out here.
I guess so.
All right. Rats. Give me a moment here. So, August. Just a reminder for the things that are coming up. And Tina, you can help me on this, or Michael. On the 20th, we have a luncheon, a new teacher luncheon at noon. And Michael, were you talking about a ribbon cutting at the tennis court prior to that?
Yeah, I'd like to do a small ceremony with the Board of Education, some of our student athletes, some of our tennis coaches, and even our former athletic director. We've asked Mr. Blankenberg to come back and participate with that. So we'll get the time tightened up specifically, but we're thinking probably somewhere in that 11:30 timeframe, right before lunch at noon, just to walk out. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the facilities, but the tennis courts are all but finished. They need the nets. The hoops are up on the basketball court. The pavilion is framed and the roof is on it. The bleachers are assembled. The parking area, or excuse me, the standing area outside of the courts is all sealed. It looks really sharp and it's coming together nicely. So I think for our community, it'd be a great thing for you all to just say, hey, let's cut the ties and get our kids out there playing.
Absolutely. So there's the ribbon cutting, then the luncheon, and following that, the board will be making the site visits to the high school and the middle school. Is that correct?
No.
No?
The high school, yeah, we're gonna visit the high school and we'll do the middle school. We're doing the elementary and middle school site visit the 27th.
Right.
So high school, middle school on the 20th,
Okay.
elementary school and transportation on the 27th.
Okay, before the board meeting
Correct.
at 3 o'clock, I have written
Yeah.
down. Okay, elementary. Okay, and
What day in October is the speaker, are they coming in?
October 9th. Yeah, it's the Friday staff development day.
is that an all-day?
Her event is not an all-day, the staff development day is, but I'll get you the particulars on that. I just wanted to offer it up because, like I said, they're phenomenal people.
Okay, great. And then there would be coming up, do you have, I don't have plans here for a staff get-together or beginning day, conference day?
And we're finalizing that. And then, again, that we're gonna work, I believe it's September 1st. What, September 3rd is this kickoff?
Well, September 1st is when the teachers come back, September 3rd is our.
Right, so September 1st, staff come back on Tuesday, September 3rd, the Wednesday, we have a keynote speaker and a kickoff, and we'll be working with Lions, actually, is gonna come over and participate with us on the 3rd. And I believe it's Ken Williams is gonna speak to the group. So we'll get you those particulars
Okay.
as they come about. And then, similar to last year, we're doing the meet and greets with our families before school starts as well, because Labor Day starts. So I'll get you all those things in my
Alright.
Friday update,
Okay. Busy times.
for sure.
Yes, very good, thank you. All right, anything else, anyone? In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Tina? Leslie? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned.
Linda, wave bye.
Oh, bye, Linda.